here at UBC TV, the public national broadcaster, coming all the way from Nile Avenue here in Kampala, in Radio Uganda Village. It's another lovely day today. Now, just let you know that later today, of course, there will be a Thanksgiving service hosted by His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni at State House, a Thanksgiving service which is also Christmas carols. Remember, it's now festive and we're getting ready for Christmas, and we're just counting only 21 days to the end of 2021. Here is where we are. To just remind you that COVID is still with us, and of course what we're doing is to get as many people as we can to get vaccinated. Go find vaccines wherever they are for you to be vaccinated. Those getting the first jab or those completing their jabs, please do that. We need to get the critical masses to open the economy come January 2022. But before that, we also need to ensure that we put on our masks in public, and of course also to adhere to all the other available SOPs given to us by the ministry. Now, the new variant is also with us. A few cases were discovered here, and not so much is actually known about that, but nonetheless, we will continue doing what we have been doing to still combat and fight COVID-19. My name is Jagan Asemakola Ziksoka. It's our Pan-African Friday. Now with me in studios, the usual comrades. James Mututa, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning, Jagena, and good morning, the viewers.
Very good. Happy to see you and happy to have you once again.
Thank you.
You're lovely. Your week?
Thanks. It has been a quiet week this time, and of course, but a lot is happening. People are still so worried about the South African thing. But we are sure, and the assurance that has been given by government and the Minister of Health in particular, that we so far still in the safer hands because the situation is manageable, and it has so far been managed well. And I think we are moving on. Last week I was not here on Sunday. I mean on Friday.
Last Friday.
Yeah, I missed that show. But also later, of course, we had to have the enthronement of the Bishop of Mbale Diocese. So most of the time I was kept in the east.
Oh yes, I remember you're actually gone for that.
Yeah. So I could not attend the show, and I missed the audience, and I'm sure some people also missed me. But thank God we're back here, and on coming I realized that a call was also running away. So
you just cross. Well, thank you so much. When you talked about the bishop, of course, I also remember that yesterday, of course, the bishop of Kampala, the administrative, I think it was called the administrative apostle of Kampala Diocese, is now the Archbishop of Kampala. Finally, Bishop Paul Semogerere. And we just want to wish him all the best of luck and all the support that can be given to him to steer and to stir the flock from Kampala there. Of course, joining us together is Comrade Daniel Rugarama. He's the chairman for the Pan-African Movement Uganda. Comrade Rugarama, karibu.
Thank you so much, Ndugu moderator. Good morning to comrades here in the studio. Good morning to comrades elsewhere, wherever you are watching us from. And I'm grateful that once again I've been invited to participate in this debate.
Very good. Thank you so much. Calvin Ogwang is a consultant, a Pan-Africanist, but also a candidate vying for IALA on the Uganda People's Congress Party ticket. Welcome, Ndugu Ogwang.
Oh, thank you so much, my brothers in the studio, and every Ugandans out there listening and watching for this wonderful show. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, thank you very much. Before you actually even get into our issues, I'm excited that you are trying it out for IALA. Are you ready for it?
Yes, I am.
What special thing are you bringing on board?
Definitely the number of issues that we need to discuss as Africans. First of all, like in East Africa itself, we have been singing of integration for many years. This is one of many things that we need to make sure that it comes to reality. Two, when you look around, like we are going to discuss more about the Democratic Republic of Congo. These are very wonderful neighbors. So when you try to see our neighbors in DRC with a lot of resources and the like, you will find that Uganda, with 1 million neighbors, they are not all that into good interaction with the DRC because there's no access roads, there's no opportunity for exploiting the resources, both in Uganda and DRC. I think these are some of the issues that we need to move and discuss at the regional level.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Here, welcome. And of course, Nduguru Garama, let me start with you. One, to just make a comment. In passing, yesterday, Tanzania celebrated 60 years of their political independence. It's a day that we're also, again, celebrating the World Anti-Corruption Day. In Uganda, we were at Kololo, of course, commemorating the International Anti-Corruption Day. In Tanzania, our brothers and sisters there were celebrating their 60th independence celebrations. Just a comment on Tanzania at 60.
Tanzania, from time immemorial, as far as the history of East Africa, and especially independence is concerned, has provided the rest of its neighbors with clarity of political ideology. The majority of the East African countries and Africa at large have derived what one would call political maturity from the example provided by Tanzania, especially dating back the days of Mwalimu Kambarega Julius Nyerere. That tradition has been carried via the subsequent political heads of Tanzania. The East African community, the fact that we have got majority of our offices and the secretariat in Tanzania is not by accident. It is also therefore correct of any political analyst, myself inclusive, to state therefore that when Tanzania is celebrating the 60 years of maneuvering rather successfully through her politics, the rest of us, East Africa and Africa at large, especially given the regional blocks, in particular ours, EACA, it is something that we take gladly and we draw a lot of lessons.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Well, I was just getting a message here from one of my teachers who loves the Pan-African program, teacher Tom Chwanuka. He's actually watching and thanking you so much for being part of it. Thank you so much, teacher Chwanuka, just right there. Comrade, you didn't say anything about Tanzania because you're with us here last Friday. Let me hear your comment on Tanzania before we get into the Congo issues.
I think one of the countries that we can take lessons from as a bloc, both at the smallest Africa, but also generally this part of Africa, is Tanzania. They may not be so rich in resources, but they have, at least Tanzania has shown that political muscle when it comes to leadership, when it comes, because we have seen CCM particularly, because we have seen most of the political parties that existed during the independence of most of the African countries have disappeared, maybe with the exception of ANC in South Africa and a few other countries. Most of the parties that existed then have disappeared. Now, when you look at Tanzania, they have kept that. But also, one thing I've liked about Tanzania as they celebrate their 60 years of independence, one thing I've learned is that that momentum and that ability to identify leaders, train leaders, but also retain these leaders. Even after they have left, they are still very influential in the politics of the country. You saw how when Mama Suluhu was coming in as a president, all the former heads of state, those who were leaving, had to come together and agreed on the way forward, much as the constitution provided, but they also had to give an input in that. But also the issue of this talent identification, promotion is also very key. You saw when President Chikwete wanted to become a president at that youthful age. And the leaders including Mzee Kambarage, by then he was leaving, said, no, ungali kijana, you leave this. And that's how Mkapa comes in to be the president. And this guy was again placed in a different, I think, in foreign affairs, but again preparing him for leadership in the future. So I think that stability, both as a political party, but also that that faith and hope for the people, knowing that what they are doing is taking them somewhere, is also very important. Okay. But also they have also been very supportive, you know, at the frontline states. We have seen that even our problems here, Tanzania has also supported us quite a lot in ensuring stability of the region. Much as now Uganda is taking on that role of doing the peace in the region, but Tanzania has also been at it for quite some time. And I think we appreciate them for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Ogwang, do you want to say something about Tanzania? Because I want us to get into the issues of the DRC.
We cannot discuss East Africa, then you leave out Tanzania. Tanzania has been a very good nation, very good and cooperative nation. Remember, in 1979, 1978, when some Ugandans were there, and they contributed strongly to ensure that the peace was restored in Uganda. And of course, there's some kind of democracy was also restored, right from the other tyrant kind of rule. Then the other thing which is very important that we should not leave out is that the unity in Tanzania, you cannot compare it with many countries across the world, because it is very hard to hear a Tanzanian introducing him or herself by tribe, something like that. They have that solidarity of Tanzanians. That's something very key that we need to copy and at least bring it also in our countries. And I think up to now, the reason, as my brother said, we have the headquarters of East African Community and the like. These are the centers and the like. This is a clear indication that Tanzania is such a peaceful country. And rarely you hear this kind of struggling during the political contestation and all that. That is something which is very key for these regional countries.
Okay, gentlemen, and let's now get into the issues of the DRC. And of course, it is just very pertinent that we talk about this country called the Democratic Republic of Congo. And Uganda, as we speak now, has a joint operation that is happening between the Ugandan army and the DRC army, just ready to fight the ADF who in the bushes there of this country. But of course, our discussion this morning on our Pan-African Friday is not going to be centered on Operation Shujaa, but we want to look at this country called the DRC and its strategic importance to the rest of Africa. Does DRC matter to Africa? What happens to a peaceful DRC? What happens to a progressive DRC? What happens to a successful DRC? What happens to it in context of Africa entirely? And of course, I'll start with you, Comrade Rugarama, from the Pan-African Movement of Uganda.
Once again, thank you so much. Permit me, since my immediate
Yes,
neighbors have their masks on, let me start by historizing the Congo. Prior to the direct colonial rule, there was a man called Leopold II, should have been king of Belgium, who directly carved out DRC as his personal property. For quite a number of years, probably 30 and above, he was directly exploiting the present-day Democratic Republic of Congo, then Zaire. When he handed over, it was only to go to the country which he was heading, Belgium, directly came into the exploitation of DRC. When they were done, and Congo got a semblance of democracy to govern their own country, be in charge of their own affairs, their very first democratically elected Prime Minister, Comrade Patrice
Emery Lumumba,
was quickly eliminated, via the combination of CIA and the Belgian government. They brought in a stooge of their own in the late Mobutu Sese Seko, who ruled for donkey years, probably crossed 40 or thereabout. From there, the history of DRC has been characterized by short reigns of the Kabilas, and currently
Laurent Kabila,
then the son,
and now
later on now the Comrade
Tshisekedi.
What does that tell you? That DRC, blessed with natural resources, great depth of timber, platinum, uranium, coltan, to mention but a few, of course gold as well, has not had a stable political leadership from as far as we can date history. And therefore, the exploitation of the natural resources has not been to the advantage of the Wananchi. The interest of the colonial master then, be it Leopold, be it Belgium, and even the leadership that immediately there came, which was not a Congolese leadership, but a leadership that was put there by the colonial master, was for purposes of perpetuating the exploitation for the benefit of the colonial master, who was presently not necessarily in the country, but was getting the direct benefits. Strategically speaking, therefore, Congo, which would have been a source of raw materials for the economic growth of her own people and immediate neighbors, has not provided that example, simply because they are extreme interests which are at crossroads with the interests of the people within DRC and the immediate neighbors. Now, that tells you why, for instance, the geopolitics in and around DRC have benefited mainly the colonial masters and their cousins. Because when you look at the presence, for instance, of MONUSCO and MONUSCO, I believe those are the two camps which are UN related. UN has been in the Democratic Republic of Congo for as many years as my memory. My memory can.
Yeah, from the time they got their independence in the 60s. They've never left. Yeah.
It is one of the forces known in history to be drawing the biggest defense budget, at least on the African continent, for keeping the peace that we do not see.
Forever by
They store in DRC from the clashes that are internally engineered, externally engineered, but happen on the soil of DRC,
executed internally,
have been on the increase. The exploitation, like our big sister, Ambassador Dr. Chihombo has always mentioned, if you take an aerial view of DRC and see the number of planes landing and getting out, you will think this is the busiest airport somewhere not on the not on the African continent. What are those planes landing, bringing, and what are they taking out? Those are UN-related planes, and we all know who UN is. It may not necessarily be our debate today. When, therefore, comrade, you ask a question, what is the importance of DRC to Africa? What would have been the importance of DRC to Africa is, if you permit me, probably the correct rephrase, if you allowed me. Because DRC has actually not benefited Africa. Like it has not benefited herself. Because the population of DRC vis-a-vis the land, somebody will help me with the current population now in
89,
DRC.
I think.
About 89,
They are,
90.
but you
89,
look at the
90
mass, just to look at the mass, they are actually, we are half. You see, we are not anywhere close. If you would have to get Uganda, multiply it by how many times to fit in DRC.
DRC by itself is it's 5 times bigger than Sierra Leone, bigger than Cameroon, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, and Liberia combined. 5 times bigger than all those.
Thank you so much.
It's one country that, of course, is also bordered by 9 other countries. I think in Africa it's all a country. With all these neighbors, they have about 9, 10 neighbors around them.
Now, when you look at that, of course, I was also getting disturbed because I was trying to cross-check, and I think I'm coming to a correct conclusion from the sources I'm consulting, that Africa, geographically speaking, has persistently, from long, been projected smaller than it otherwise is. And I wonder why anybody would want to do that. But when you next call us, then I think we shall talk about
We're getting
that.
those issues.
But let me conclude by saying that the strategic importance of DRC to Africa would have been to emit, radiate the economic prosperity, to exude and share in the God-given natural resources for the absolute economic and other related development of not only DRC, but the rest of Africa. It would have acted as the pharmaceutical hub of the entire Africa. It would have worked as the most naturally gifted, and therefore a country that would enable the building of the biggest telecommunication network, because of that main important mineral element which is used for telecommunication or communication purposes. But all that, and because of course its river system and natural forest cover, I want to believe that it would have also provided the best of the what one would maybe call medicinal Africa that anybody would think about.
Okay.
Of course, the other opportunities that would have been derived from DRC are enormous. Suffice to say that all that has not happened, not because it would not have happened, but the imperialistic hand has been at play, and they seem not to be letting go unless we organize better.
Very good. Thank you so much, Nduguru Garama. Now, Mututa here, let me draw you to the attention of a man called Tim Marshall. In his book called The Prisoners of Geography, the 10 maps that tell you everything that you need to know about global politics. He talks about the 10 maps, and one of the maps there is the African map. When he talks about Africa, he says, one, the colonialists in the DRC hatched an egg without a yolk in it. Number two, he also feels and says, if you have a stable Congo, then you definitely have to have a stable Africa. Do you agree with him, to start with? And secondly, if Tim Marshall, who is a broadcaster, he's a journalist, and I think he's even a lawyer, he's a writer, he's a Mzungu man. If he does feel that when you have a stable Congo, then you have a stable Africa, wouldn't we now look at it as we, the Africans, to ensure that we get Congo stable, we get Congo to be peaceful, because the peace in Congo spreads all over. When you have a good Congo, then you definitely have a good Africa for all of us. Wouldn't we now galvanize our energies and our efforts as Pan-Africans to ensure that we have a stable, a good, and a habitable Congo? Mtuta.
Yeah, but of course, I think when we look at that, we also need to consider the historical background of Congo and Africa generally, because Congo is what it is today because of its past. And the unfortunate thing is that the leadership of Africa have not done much in addressing this issue. Because by now we would be thinking of, we cannot talk of a stable Congo or a peaceful Congo without the intervention of the rest of Africa. Because the rest of Africa have a big role to play in stabilizing what is happening in Congo. We have seen foreign forces that came in Congo since the 60s. And these forces have never left.
They've been there forever.
We have seen the mercenaries that came then. They have never left. Even the colonialists who came that time, they have never left. Now, like Nani said, that they hatched an egg without a yolk, and that has remained so. And it is on purpose. It's not because there is no any other country, talk of Nigeria, talk of even then Sudan, still you would see that Congo is enormous. But this was also deliberate. You remember when Joseph
Kasavubu,
yes, was trying to promote Zombe the other side, so that they have the Katanga as a region. Belgium came in, but they didn't want to stop that split. Because again, when he talked about the UN, when you look at the history of UN in the Congo, the idea by Lumumba was that, look, we are having, first there was a mutiny in the army, and then he said, we need a peace to keep this mutiny down. But then when he was talking to the Secretary General, the agreement was that when the UN force will come, will also stop the secession group in Katanga.
The Katanga secession.
Yes, but then the UN also was aware that they needed to have Katanga on. And no wonder when he talks of, when you see planes flying in and flying out, what are they bringing and what are they taking? It is that historical background that the force in Congo, the UN force in Congo, is one of the biggest, and it draws one of the biggest budgets of the UN. And then you wonder, where is this money coming from that is supporting these activities in the Congo? But you also look at what is happening, and then you realize that maybe Congo is supporting these forces that are staying in the Congo. But also that the colonial hand has not left Congo. So what needs to be done, talking of the strategic position, the strategic importance of Congo in Africa, that the African leadership needs to sit down. Because the colonials know that when we leave Congo the way it is without proper infrastructure, administration, it is going to be amorphous to manage, but it will be easy to exploit. That there will be no administration at whichever level, and it will be easy to compromise in terms of corruption, in terms of getting resources. Up to now, I think Belgium, the family of King Leopold has still a lot of, including some facilities in Congo, and Congo itself as a personal property. So what Africa needs to done and to be done, and I think which is also my other disappointment with the African Union, is that we have seen a lot of interventions in Africa, people coming, claiming to be our friends, to help us. But then the quietness of the African Union sometimes is also hurting. It's also annoying, actually, to say the least. And then you wonder, are we waiting for what to happen so that if you cannot go there, for heaven's sake, let's say something. Let's have a position. But this quietness has now created a vacuum, and that vacuum has been filled by other forces that are really not aimed at the intention of supporting and helping Africa. And then Congo is the one to suffer. I remember last time one was talking about a beautiful woman without a brain. Suffers. So this beautiful Congo, without a brain in terms of proper leadership and administration, is still going to suffer. But like he said, you know, Congo has material. If you want to make a plane, if you want to make a road, if you want to make a ship, if you want to have communication, but all these things are the exact opposite and absence in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So we have seen presidents come and go, but then these presidents alone, we have now Comrade Tshisekedi who is there, but you realize he may not also do much because of those historical disconnections. That even if he is going to be there for all this time, first of all, he's not going to have the infrastructure done. He needs a program. Now, before that program is done, the level of turnover of leadership, while you are planning this comes in. And then also the insecurity, the instability, that not many people will genuinely want to do business in Congo, except the same rascals and the mercenaries that are flying in, dropping guns, and flowing out, taking the materials, the resources from the Congo. So what needs to be done is that there must be an intervention from within Africa itself to say no. I think we can say, let's create an enabling environment for whoever will be administering Congo to be able to reach the people. And I think people are making noise about Uganda intervention. I mean, going to DRC for this peace. It's part of the reason as to why we have to exist. And when you look at what has been happening, that most of the neighbors of Congo have not been very proactive, have not been supportive in the peace in Congo. From even then, as Patrice Lumumba was assassinated, and the subsequent Mobutu and others coming on power. In fact, to the extent that when you look at even the first deployment of the UN forces in the DRC, I think the closest country in Africa was Ethiopia, the Ethiopian contingents, which was about 400 soldiers. The others were Tunisia and India, and then other countries from outside of Africa. So it is important that if Congo is to be peaceful, then Africa will be peaceful. But if Africa and Congo are to be peaceful, then the African leadership must intervene. No one is going to come from somewhere to pacify that, because the more it is disorganized, the better for them to benefit.
Okay, thank you so much, Ndugu Mtuta. Now, coming to you, my Uganda People's Congress comrade, Ndugu Calvin Ogwang. Well, it's good. I asked you to remove off your mask because you are a candidate. People need to know who Ogwang actually is. You were concealed in a mask, and because you're looking for votes, people should actually know who you are. Now, we're still discussing these issues of Congo, and we want to just know why we think Congo does matter to Africa. We saw earlier this year when I think it was President Ramaphosa of South Africa handing over the chairpersonship of the AU summit to President Felix Antonio Tshisekedi Tshilombo of the DRC. Now, he comes into the leadership at the helm of the AU under a theme of building the Africa that we want. In 2013, before President Tshilombo Tshisekedi became president, we were celebrating 50 years of the African Union, or the OAU. And we launched what we called the Africa Agenda 2063, of the Africa that we want by 2063. Now, one of these things was building or constructing the Ingo dams, which are also in the DRC. In the DRC, yes. One of the biggest on the continent, I think, in the world. And these are some of the projects that we're looking at for building and seeing a big and the kind of Africa that we want. Do you think the coming in of Tshisekedi, one as president of the DRC and also a chairperson of the AU, that would help us, that would give reason to ensuring that Congo now takes shape, and his leadership and his presidency does the unthinkable to make sure that we resurrect this giant in the DRC?
Yeah, thank you so much. But first of all, I need to start building from where my brother ended. Congo, as you can hear, is a country which is so blessed with all these kind of resources. Almost 50% of African forest is in Congo. Much as the land may not be all that very fertile, but about 80 million hectares of land in Congo is very good. But out of 80 million hectares of land in Congo, it's only 10 million which has been cultivated. And that one alone may not transform Congo economically and otherwise. And to make the matter a little bit worse, you will find that because of instability which has been prevailing there for quite some time, several African countries who may be having interest, especially the neighboring countries like Uganda, Central African Republic, Rwanda and the like, may not be having opportunity to go and do this kind of investment in Congo in order to transform that community and make it a better place, or to benefit Africa entirely. One of the authors, I may not recall the name, Fallon, I think, someone called Fallon, he did mention that the shape of Africa, the African shape is in a gun shape. So Congo itself seems to be a trigger. So the moment you touch the trigger, the whole continent is in power. I mean, is on fire. He was literally meaning that Congo is such a blessed country. Congo is such a country endowed with resources, and if Congo is stable, definitely Africans as a continent would benefit. But if Congo is in problem, definitely African would not even benefit. Now, coming to what you have just reminded us about, being the chairperson or being the leader of AU may not necessarily mean that Congo may be transformed. But I'm happy that Congo, or Democratic Republic Congo, has just shown the interest. I don't know, I need to cross-check my data whether they officially been admitted in East African community. This would be one of the best avenue for us to come together and try to find a way of helping Congo. For so many years, the SADC has been trying, but still, they did not make that inroad to stabilize that country called Congo. I think in order for us to make the best use of resources of Congo for the benefit of Africa and African populations, I think there's a need of we coming together and identify that there's a problem in Congo, a problem of political instability, a problems of these are the challenges being brought in by the external players whose interest is primarily to exploit the resources which are in Congo. So unless we come together and try to identify some of these issues and come as African community, still the Congo, much as the president is now the current the chairperson of AU, we may not realize much.
Okay, but do you look at us as a continent really trying to find a solution to Africa? For example, I very much want to draw back to 2013. I was in Addis Ababa when we were adopting the African Agenda of 2063. And one of the things that we talked about there, or that we talked about or discussed there, was silencing the guns. Now, we just talked about the African chip being in the form of a gun, and then possibly Congo is actually the trigger for this gun. But you notice that from 2013 until today, you know, the coups have actually just had steam. We've just had more coups from 2013, taking us back to the times of the 60s, 70s, and maybe the early 80s when we had coups on the continent of Africa. Now, we talked about silencing the guns. Today, you go to a country, a very progressive nation like Ethiopia, now internally riddled with a civil war, and it's taking toll on them. You got all the other countries now. When you look at the issues happening in that area, in Ethiopia, you'll notice that the other side, you have Sudan, you have Egypt this other side, you have, they're competing interests. The other day, you had Somalia also telling Kenya that, hey, please don't interfere with our issues now. You have a country here called Somalia, but a country called Somalia is also now again taking on another country, neighbor, called Kenya. Yes. You go to all these other places, you have the same in Conakry, you have these other things in Mali all happening now. The continent is actually not trusting that all of us are struggling, doing all the things. Talk about Uganda, for example. A peaceful Uganda, of course, has some insurgents and terror offshoots coming from a neighbor. Now, we do not have to settle. We up in arms again to again ensure that we chase, we get to where these rebels are coming from to also, and you just look at that. Do you look at us as being able to actually solve these issues on the continent, or there's somebody somewhere who ensures that you should be on the run every other day such that you do not have time to concentrate and build the continent?
Yeah, definitely the most important thing that we need to closely look at is that Africa as a continent is one body. So if the toes is having a problem, definitely the whole body suffers. If your nose is bleeding, you don't feel comfortable, you may even die. African leaders, African people, first of all, we need to realize that we are one. Kenya is part of us. I remember the statement made recently by Uhuru Kenyatta that some of these boundaries were not drawn by us, were drawn by some people. So we need to notice that we are one body, we are one community. However, because of other privileges that God has given us naturally, some people may not be happy. They may be like, let us conflict these neighbors so that we find a way of getting in there. I don't see major problems of us coming together to discuss issues which is affecting African community. Like you have given example, Ethiopia, Somalia, Kenya, now we are having issues in the DRC, all over. So if we could assess the neighboring countries, neighboring Congo, do we have interest in stabilizing Congo first? So what do we need there? How can we find a peaceful way of trying to negotiate with the Congolese government? How can we agree with our brothers and sisters who are there? What can't we trade in harmony without bringing that kind of bloodshed? And that cannot happen when we realize that our enemies are not we Africans, because we are one. Our enemies are somewhere, so we should find a way of coming together, discuss our issues, identify these enemies, and address it once and for all.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. It's just 10 o'clock, a minute to 10 o'clock, and of course, Pan-African Friday continues up to the hour of 11 o'clock, and we've just concluded our first hour. We just want to take a break, and when we return, when we come back, we continue and carry on with the conversation of why we think that the Democratic Republic of Congo does matter to this continent called Africa. And of course, we'll also look into our Operations Shujaa, that the Uganda People's Defense Forces is conducting jointly with the forces in the DRC. What do these mean to the region, the Great Lakes region, to the East African region, and of course to the continent of Africa? We'll take a break and return thereafter.
The E-Government Excellency Awards are here. Let us appreciate government agencies that have made great strides in digital transformation for fast, convenient, and efficient service delivery to citizens. Visit www.hours.nita.go.ug to vote for your best government agency by the 8th of December 2021. The E-Government Excellency Awards are organized by the National Information Technology Authority Uganda in partnership with the World Bank Group, Huawei, and Ernst & Young. E-Government Excellency Awards 2021, embracing disruptive technologies.
It's the festive season and we love it. And that means it's time to celebrate with GoTV.
Come with me.
So get your GoCoder and GoTV value for 25,000 shillings to watch with the whole family. And if you're feeling extra festive, upgrade to our best package yet, GoTV Super.
Something to look forward to.
Download the My GoTV app for more information.
Super.
We all deserve a super festive season. And with GoTV, there's every reason to love it.
It's Freaky Friday from Airtel. Buy or gift. Buy or give.
Get freaky too! Dial *149*10# to load a Freaky Friday bundle for you to enjoy the best offers on voice and data.
To buy a bundle for friends and family, dial *149*10*5#. Freaky Friday with Airtel. Buy or gift a bundle today. Dial *149*10# to get started. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Introducing the all-new Roofing's TMX 500C rebars with cut and bend surfaces. Roofing's, strength of a nation.
The E-Government Excellency Awards are here. Let us appreciate government agencies that have made great strides in digital transformation for fast, convenient, and efficient service delivery to citizens. Visit www.hours.nita.go.ug to vote for your best government agency by the 8th of December 2021. The E-Government Excellency Awards are organized by the National Information Technology Authority Uganda in partnership with the World Bank Group, Huawei, and Ernst & Young. E-Government Excellency Awards 2021, embracing disruptive technologies.
Every marriage has 100% chances of succeeding. You know why? Because God created marriage, and God never creates failure, and God never designs anything to fail. every marriage has 100% chances of succeeding. Is your marriage struggling and you're wondering whether it will ever succeed, whether you will ever make it, whether it's even worth holding on to? You got to tune into Unlocking Marital Bliss, because right here we provide the keys to unlock the bliss in your marriage, and you will be able to succeed. We've had testimonies and lives are changing day by day.
Marriage must be a discipline. It must not be handled like a casual thing.
As women, when we have the outward expression, even our form of respect is tied to the outward things that you do.
Some women now have working class. They don't know how to handle their husbands because the marriage was has become like question and answer marriage. Do you have any tea? Don't you have hands to prepare it? Why have you come back late? Did I take your blanket? It's question and answer marriage.
Not any other place, but every Sunday, 3 p.m., right here at UBC. With the one and only Cyrus Rod, not any other.
Unlocking Marital Bliss.
Well, it's a very good morning and welcome back from that short break. We continue with our Pan-African Friday and, of course, discussing issues over the DRC and how important it is to the continent of Africa. Now, it's just a question that we ask to all of you out there. Why do you think DRC matters to us? Why is it a very vital, strategic, why is it of strategic importance to the continent of Africa? Of course, later we'll be joined by a member of parliament who is in Kasese on Zoom. It also talked to us about what he thinks about this continent of Africa and, of course, the country called the DRC. Ndugu Garama, here is where we are now. We have seen the crisis in Congo, of course, like you earlier on said. It's been there forever. Do we even think of a day when we think that the issues in Congo will end? Recently, when we saw the Operation Shujaa being launched and starting out, we've seen videos coming from Congo on social media of Congolese throwing stones at UN cars and telling them, you've stayed here long enough and nothing has come to us. But we've seen brothers who have come here and in 1, 2, 3 days, we're seeing things changing to us. What do these things mean? Our operation, that is, of course, hunting and looking for the ADF and these offshoots of Islamic states. We are fighting a terror war to ensure that we live in a peaceful region. But what, of course, do these things mean to the people in Congo and, of course, to the rest of Africa?
Due to mismanagement of Democratic Republic of Congo as a country, having, and no pun intended, but I'm trying to be as realistic as possible because this is well known. DRC having very weak political leadership and being very thin on the ground, it has allowed wrongdoers to enter into DRC and create camps where they have from time and again emanated to perpetuate their criminal activities in the neighboring countries. There are a number of rebel outfits within DRC which DRC has had no capacity to deal with. I do not want to say that some of these UN-related organizations keeping peace are part of the rebel outfits, but somebody else was, I think, in a fit of anger, saying it, especially after seeing what you have just described to us, the Wananchi stoning UN vehicles. The anger from the common man on the streets of DRC towards the United Nations is understandable. When a country like America talks about interests, that these are American interests, I want the rest of the world to realize that each country has got her own interests. When, therefore, Uganda, through joint operation with the leadership in DRC, decide that we are now going to launch attacks directly to these rebel outfits that have from time and again killed their Muslim brothers, at least that's what we have been told, that, and His Excellency the President was talking about it, that all the Muslim sheikhs we've had being eliminated is the brain and artwork of ADF. I do not have any reason to doubt him. We have had a number of them, who can list them, being killed almost in similar ways. We have had officials of government, not necessarily Muslim clerics, dying, and it has been attributed to ADF. And in some respects, ADF has also come out to say, we are the ones who have done this. Now, any sober country with correct ideological leadership would certainly want to strike a deal with a country like DRC, such that you hit the enemy from the source. And this is, I think, what is contained in Operation Shujaa. Now, DRC is going to get semblance of stability to realize her potential the day African countries, and not all of them, because the majority of these big things do not come out of comprehensive and all joint efforts of everybody. In most cases, it takes a few individuals to stabilize situations. I want to believe that DRC, and if anybody doubts this, then I wish them success. But DRC is not going to be stabilized by United Nations in MONUSCO, in MONUC, or whatever they call themselves. I want to agree greatly with Ndugu Mututa that we need the hand of African Union, even if, by the way, African Union mandated a few countries, maybe 2, 3 or so, to go and pacify DRC, vast as it is. We have had great success in Somalia. Anybody who does not remember, conveniently, there are those who conveniently choose to forget. But we all know where Somalia was, especially after the leadership then had lost power, and there were a number of players in Somalia. And at the same time, when you look at the Somali coastline, we clearly know who the players were. Not that they have left, but at least now we can see some semblance of stability and a bit of growth, and organic at that, by virtue of what the African Union mandated some of the few countries that have gone into that particular country, especially Uganda, and created that stability. So I want to believe that Operation Shujaa, Uganda, yes, may be pursuing her own interests to make sure that Uganda gets stabilized and cuts the rebel incursions from DRC into Uganda. But at the same time, I want to believe that this is a long-term strategic move. Why? Ndugu Tshisekedi appears to have some good vision into the future, because we would be having a lot of rejection to some of these moves. For instance, not long, Uganda signed a joint economic, it was road construction. Now, of course, there are all sorts of arguments. Uganda is constructing roads in DRC, but you see, I don't want to use some words on such an important show. But sometimes we conveniently choose to be short-sighted.
But those who say that forget that one of the issues that helped us to manage the war against the LRA in northern Uganda was the Operation Bow Seal, the border seal, which also involved making and paving roads. Because we had roads and we could run after the LRA, and of course, that's how we actually managed to even chase Konya out of this country.
We certainly need that infrastructure. You see, there is less that can be achieved the moment you do not have an elaborate infrastructure. Now, even if, by the way, it was not solely for flashing out ADF and stabilizing Congo, if, for instance, Uganda, as a strategic plan, agreed with Comrade Tshisekedi that we are going to achieve economic growth together, and to do that, there is great need to stabilize your country. Now, if you give me permission, I am going to do that, although it will take resources, because it is not the first time that Uganda has used her meager resources to make sure that they achieve stability in other countries. Had we not moved into, for instance, Sudan, I can assure you that we would not be breathing the way we are breathing currently. Therefore, in a manner of speaking, that Operation Shujaa is, in my opinion, more of a strategic grand plan than merely a show of might, like some quarters of society have come up to say that probably we are sending a message to some people. And even if it was a question of sending a message to some people, so be it, if they must get the message.
If they must get the message.
Now, I want to conclude, therefore, by making these short observations, that a country's interest, a country's love to protect her interests should not be debated, because America has largely achieved what she has achieved simply because she has constantly, over a period, fronted to the rest of the world that America first. It was only Trump that said it so loudly, but even those who do not say it as loud as he was saying, go ahead in actions to every country that has succeeded, be it China now, or these others you are talking about. Either they did it covertly or overtly, but they fronted the interests of their country. Now, if Uganda is doing the same, and I want to believe that there is a broader sense in which Uganda is doing this, it is both patriotic, but most importantly, it is Pan-African.
Pan-Africanism. Thank you. Ndugu Ogwang, come to the conversation now. When you look at the continent of Africa, the most populated countries of Africa, now you would think that it's very good to have numbers and to galvanize those numbers. When we talk about East Africa's regional integration, or when we talk about the integration of the different regional blocks on the continent, is one of the things that we try to leverage on the numbers. We have an East Africa today as 6 partner states with a population of about 180 million people. Now, the DRC is applying to join us. When the DRC joins the East African community bloc, they come with a whole population of 89 million. Now, that gives the numbers talked about 200 plus million people. But you also notice that Nigeria, Africa's most populated country, which is about 200 million, is not settled. You know, it's a very big economy, it's a very big population, but also with all these issues, they are fighting wars and doing all these other things every other day. Buhari has not enjoyed his 2 terms in office. When you go to Ethiopia, and I think Ethiopia is the second most populated country on the continent, Ethiopia, with its almost 120 million people, is also now, look at what is happening to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, he's at the battlefront and all the things. Come to countries like maybe South Africa, go to Sudan, one of the top 10 most populated countries, Sudan. It's also having all these issues. The DRC itself, third most, I think, third most populated. Now, all the countries that have a big population on the continent are the countries that actually have issues. And numbers are a problem. Is it a problem to have and to grow these numbers? We talk about population because we look at it economically, but are they an undoing to us, or it would be something that would leverage on as strength to the continent?
Yeah, the population may be good, may determine so many issues. When you have huge populations, can provide markets, can give opportunity for people to produce, and what you produce, you can even sell them internally without taking it somewhere else because you have the demand within. However, populations may not necessarily mean that the stability of the country, because as he has been talking about, other people may be having interest here and there. That those who may be having interest for their personal benefit, but not to benefit that particular country. Like for the case of UN, we have been talking about, they have been there for many years, and they have been providing these peacekeeping missions, these other activities. But Congo, or Democratic Republic of Congo, as it is known now, has never stabilized. Much as they may be having lower populations, as we may assume that they would really benefit a lot from the big resources, the bigger resources that they have, because the populations is so minimal, the resources which is there is so adequate, where they can tap the resources and put the hospital, put the school, build road and all that. But that did not happen. But when you see countries like Sweden, Denmark, with a very minimal population also, you will find that they are very satisfied with what they have. The population which is minimal can contribute taxes, and the services are well distributed, and people are enjoying. When you go to China, for instance, with a very bigger population, they seem to be doing better, much as there are also challenges. That's why you see them sending helping hands across the globes. But to me, what matters most is in the stability of the country, is how do we manage the resources, and whom do we allow in our country, and first of all, what is our interest, and who should be our partner. Then that partner who is coming, is he coming to benefit us, or is coming for his or our personal benefit? Like for the case of Uganda, I do appreciate that Uganda is a good neighbor. It has shown example. Entering Sudan, you see some kind of peace, returning, entering Somalia. Now we are in DRC, because DRC is like a neighbor whose house is burning. So when the house of a neighbor is burning, you may feel the smoke. And the smoke which is coming there may affect you in many ways. We have witnessed what was happening here in Kampala, which was really very terrifying. So Uganda going to DRC, that is something that we have to appreciate, that is something good first of all, it will not only stabilize Uganda, but it will also try to harmonize certain things which were not right in as far as the insecurity. We're trying to come up and destabilizing the neighboring country, Uganda, coming from DRC. And I would think that if African countries would definitely copy from what Uganda is doing right now, we have the neighboring countries like Rwanda, the Central African Republic. If we could all come together and say we have a problem here and this is part of us, Africa, DRC is part of us, we are all Africans, and try to weed out some of these, what I would call a small jigger in one of the toes. I think the population would not be an issue. The population of DRC would benefit, then the population of East African will benefit as well. Because I was doing my calculations, I found that in East Africa, the way it is in these 6 partner states, we are about 180 million. You bring in DRC with 90 million also.
270.
270 already. That would be a very good population, very good number, which is manageable. And the resources across this continent, I mean this subcontinent, would help us to sustain us. Only that we need to identify where is the problems. Why is it that it's only in Africa where there's this kind of war? Why don't we also have in other part of the world, but here in Africa, who's having a hand?
Okay, thank you. Ndugu Mututa, do we as Africans, of course the African Union, do we have the capacity to talk to the United Nations and tell them, yes, you have tried, but you don't seem to make headway? Can you let us manage our issues? Can we, do we have that capacity? Do we even have the energy or credibility to talk to them? Because when you look at the UN mission, peace mission in Somalia, in those early days after Siad Barre, 92, 93, and I think in 94 is when they publicly even discovered or they realized that actually failed on the mission, which of course much later prompted the African Union to also come up with what we call the AMISOM. Now we have seen where MONUC and MONUSCO, where they are, things don't seem to be working like where we see actually AMISOM. Do we have that capacity to actually tell the UN that let's get into Congo, let's get involved in the issues of Congo, in the issues of our brothers, just like we have gotten into the issues of our brothers and sisters in Somalia?
But for me, even if we didn't have that capacity, can't we just even cause a bluff? I remember I was reading when the African Union sat in Kampala, and the Amini was saying, no, with Rhodesia, we must intervene. No, I mean, even against all the odds, can the African Union say, this is what we need to do, and we can do something? And the irony about it is that we're talking about the African Union with the leader who apparently comes from Congo. Now, you would expect that he could use this time to marshal the support of other blocs and other areas to push for a common end to the insurgency in the DRC. Unfortunately, maybe he will be able to succeed in that, but he needs support to be able to do that. But at the same time, when you look at what is happening, you realize, I was reading a report that there are companies that have divided Congo amongst themselves, like you have seen what was happening in Somalia, that you have warlords that have divided the country amongst themselves, that you have this territory and is controlled by some warlord. Now, there are companies, foreign companies in Congo that have divided themselves to first supply the arms to protect their interests, but also later on exploit the resources that are coming from there. Now, you hear sometimes people saying, if you are going to sell coltan and it's going to come from Congo, then you must have a certificate. And who is giving the certificate anyway? So it is one company against the other. For us as Africans, I think we have opened too much the back door. That even when you are talking about negotiating, you are going to negotiate with someone and say, no, when you come in this house, you will have to wash your feet first. But the man is in the sitting room. Then your negotiations are not going to be taken serious.
No, they can't.
But I think it's a high time that as Africans, we sat down and African leaders said, I think enough is enough. Let's begin from somewhere. Even if we are not doing something, but let's talk about it. That we are hard on this and this is what we prefer to be done. And that can be done. Now, if you don't do that, we are still going to cause more harm and more suffering for the people, not only in DRC, but maybe it will be in many other countries in Africa that where these people are operating with interest. Like I said, each country, and as individuals, each person has interests, and each country has their interests. Uganda will have our interests, Americans have their interests, Russians have their interests. But then these interests have also to be weighed against the will and the wishes of other countries. So the people of DRC may be not with the capacity to stand on their own, but I think, as you put it, Africans together, we can stand together with the Congo, and we push for a common agenda for both Africa, but also for the Congo. But the problem is that we have allowed a lot that is happening, and we seem to be quiet. He put it that for Uganda, it has been more of a brotherhood. Because if we were operating like any other capitalistic country, would have benefited more from these interventions. We have been to Sudan. If we were operating like I've seen other countries, would now our people will be in Sudan, managing telecoms, managing infrastructure, doing all that. We are in Somalia. If we were operating like looking for profits, would be managing the harbors, will be doing all the things, the contractors will be there. But Uganda does help and then come back. We leave the people to do their own things. So I think in that spirit of brotherhood, and under which I think and I pray and beg that Uganda should understand, because I've seen already people talking about President Museveni, why do you build a road in Congo when you don't have enough roads in Uganda? Well, because President Museveni is not going to use these roads and his family. These roads are still going to benefit Uganda. And if the east of Congo is to be secure, then Uganda will be secure. Now, if that is not done, you saw that when the soldiers were in some of these places, the videos we have seen, how excited the people are, because they definitely know some of their problems are going to be resolved. And the rebels in Congo, some of them actually are just loose groups, because the companies we're talking about are supplying guns, because to them a gun is cheap. If I can give you a few guns and I get kilos of gold, I mean, we're in business. So some of these loose groups, they may not be even having the leadership, but because they have guns, they will go in the village, they will terrorize people to make the situation, I mean, the place ungovernable, and then the guys, the chacos they talk about will come in and they will get whatever they will get, and they will leave. So I think as Ugandans, we need to appreciate that what is being done in Congo is for the good of this country. Because if you have not lost someone, then at least you have heard of someone who has been killed from the activities of this part. So this brotherhood should not only stop because Uganda is intervening to save itself. Of course, also saving the Congolese. But this brotherhood should continue to the extent that we need to have a peaceful Congo. And once we have a peaceful Congo, we shall have the peaceful 9 countries. Because other than Uganda, we have seen also these groups emanating from Congo and causing trouble in the neighboring countries.
Very good, Ndugu Mututa. Let me hear from Comrade Rugarama here on that same one. I am looking at Operation Shujaa that is being jointly conducted by the Uganda People's Defense Forces and the DRC forces. What about if it just becomes a very successful operation, like so far we've seen? We're now opening the roads, access is made, the road is made, and that particular area in Eastern Congo is actually pacified. Do you think that that will change the narrative? And when it changes the narrative, to whose advantage will that be?
Thank you so much. Just a minute before I go into that, because that is a very critical question that you have asked. I'm reminded from this entire debate that we are having now of a writer, a very prolific writer, Noam Chomsky, in one of the illustrated books, Cold War, Facts and Fancy. He makes a very important observation that in emerging economies, if there is going to be no war, we shall create war in order to supply the guns. Exactly. So we must be mindful when we are debating the chaotic situations in Africa, for instance, that majority of these wars, almost all of them, by the way, are not ours.
Paul Kuria says the same in his book, Wars, Guns and Votes. He talks about the same thing, and he says the biggest gun market is on the continent of Africa.
I will tell you that, for instance, what Comrade Abiy, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, is
Abiy
fighting
Ahmed.
with is not something that the tribe, for instance, which was in power, so they say, of course they want to paint it that way, that for us on the African continent we just may have tribes in power against other tribes, and therefore when another tribe comes in, then there must be a problem. You know, we are tribalized, we are colonialized, such that you look so small, you are not broad in terms of
trivia.
You know, they trivialize all our activities, and now we must come out and say, look, enough is enough, and there is a price, of course, we are going to pay, because we failed to realize that when Libya was being invaded, and the Libyans are now paying the price, and the entire Africa is paying the price. We have got so many examples, and we have got no reason really to believe these imperialists. The problem is when we talk about them, then other people are going to accuse you of being locked in the old mentality of choosing the colonial master. The colonial master is still around, actually. We are fighting him because he has come back through imperialism. Now, the issue of DRC, you've also talked about Nigeria. You must again go back, and the same I can say of Cameroon. Cameroon, there is a civil, Cameroon is basically divided. South, North Cameroon. I don't know where Abiy is ruling, because the South is being, the comrades in the South, English speaking, they are being murdered, and I'm even wondering why the media does not prominently report about that massacre which is happening. But you should see that the president is the darling of the West. Now you ask yourself, what are those democratic principles and values that they uphold, which they constantly teach, or they purport to want to teach to the rest of our African leaders? So these double standards, you go to Nigeria. The shape of colonialism was such that they played the politics of tokenism. Now, they would want to, and they would specifically create, for instance, the Igbo, give them an advantage of education and civil service, so that they look at the Fulani and the rest of the tribes as being weak and educated, and therefore who should not be part of Nigeria. And if the worst comes to worst, then they should actually go ahead and create their own country. That is the Biafra word that you are hearing. Now, the Biafranism in the Igbo has never died. And it is being funded by imperialistic invisible hand that cannot be seen with the naked eye. So an ordinary man will tell you, these Africans, they will always keep fighting. But they do not know exactly who is funding the civil disobedience on the streets of Nigeria. In the same way, therefore, in DRC, when, I don't want to say if, because I know that we are going to be successful. And by we, I mean the people in DRC themselves and the
Uganda.
African.
The African continent.
Uganda is just, Uganda and President Museveni are just couriers of the message that has long been waited. We have waited for the liberator. Now, if the liberator for DRC is going to come in form of the Operation Shujaa, headed by our president, is just a messenger. And because when we start particularizing, like some people want to do, that I see President Museveni is extending his military, they call it military tourism, that he's a venturous man. He's venturing, but wherever he has ventured, he has restored peace. So really, he's venturing into majority of these things. May he continue. I don't see any problem with it. So, with the moment we become successful in DRC, and we restore what had been taken away by Leopold II, by Belgium, by a combination of Belgium and the Americans, what has persistently was again carved and perpetrated through many years of misrule by Mobutu, and if that is going to be reversed and we get a semblance of peace and development through Operation Shujaa, which I am sure is going to happen. It is just a question of when. Now that it has been started on, I want to believe that other worthy and genuine cooperators will come into the picture, and Congo will be pacified. I am very sure that the moment, of course it will come at a cost, because I was listening to the front line, and there were speculators that you see we have started now these sanctions. Our head of chieftains of military intelligence has been sanctioned, financial, I think, sanctions. And this this is now a start. Somebody is going to lose power anytime. And people talk about it in a manner that shows that they are actually happy that if there was such a change of power through coup, unconstitutional means, whether it comes from the conceptual West, Americans or Europe, then they will be very happy about it. Now you really start questioning our Pan-African, or even at a smaller level, patriotic credentials. But I want to conclude by saying that the operation in the DRC is a sure win. Why is it a sure win? The people on the ground, the information coming from there, is that the people on the ground are very happy that finally there has come a force that is pro-people and sees for the people. Now, if that is combined, as it is now, with the leadership within the country, which says, yes, we can have these allies, and together we shall achieve big. Economically speaking, I can assure you, and at this material time when DRC is about to be admitted in the East African community, I can assure you that East African community will by far be the largest. If you drew the map of the East African community, and we are journeying towards the political integration, then I think it will be the largest country on planet Earth.
It will be. Don't you think that, to all of you now, but still with you, Nduguru Garama, don't you think that the success of Operation Shujaa is antagonistic to the other peacekeeping missions that have been there? When you look at the peacekeeping mission, the UN peacekeeping mission, it is the most expensive. It is the most expensive. It draws the biggest budget. When the UPDF comes in, and like you said, it's pro people, it is for the people, and the people are happy about it, its success, isn't it antagonistic, and doesn't it become a boomerang to Uganda for coming in to settle what possibly we never wanted to get settled?
Thank you so much. That is a $1 million question. You see, I can assure you that the imperialistic forces do not want to see what UPDF and the DRC forces are jointly achieving in the DRC. No. The mission of those forces, which you have said, and it is a fact, are drawing the biggest budget. Question is for what? For all those years from the 60s up to now, is certainly not to see peace. Because you see, you are spoiling the project. The project is not peace restoration. The project is not democracy in DRC. The project is keep DRC as chaotic as humanly possible for purposes of enabling the easy exploitation and routing of the resources of DRC. That is the project. Now, whoever comes in to cause the reverse of that is certainly jeopardizing the well-crafted intentions of the forces. Now, I will tell you also that, you see, with all due respect, when you look at the declassified documents, Osejefo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was removed from power, not because he was doing anything wrong. No. Actually, according to the benchmarks of democracy of the conceptual Western Europe and America, Kwame Nkrumah was doing the right thing. His only sin was that he was a Pan-African. 2, Patrice Lumumba was removed and assassinated finally, not because he had done anything wrong, because he had spent less than even 1 year, I think. Why did that happen? A combination of Belgium and CIA. It happened because in one of his reported very big rally, he said, he questioned how the resources of DRC were being utilized and were being exploited and utilized. He therefore laid down a plan of making sure, like Maduro did in Venezuela, how the people of DRC could directly benefit from their God-given resources. Ndugu, the comrade, what is the name again in West Africa, the one who was taken out by Campoero.
The one was taken out by
Campoero.
Oh, Sankara.
Thomas Sankara. Thomas Sankara met his fate simply because the programs which he, very beautiful programs which he was having for his people, is not what the imperialists want to see. They say one thing and they do quite another. Finally, Comrade Gaddafi was not killed simply because there was a civil uprising
in Libya.
There was nothing like that. Neither that he was undemocratic, a dictator, and therefore he had to go. No. What he had achieved for Libya, where he had put Libyans, his intentions to create to be part and push forward the creation of the alternative of World Bank was crime enough for him not to stay. We must therefore, as Africans, wear very thick and clear lenses to forecast the future. Otherwise, we shall keep being deceived. We play along the politics of tokenism, and we speak good English, but we are not going to achieve a lot for our people if we do not see through the lies of the imperialists.
Thank you very much. Ndugu Ogwang, our time is ending. We have about 10 minutes to conclude this. The success of Operation Shujaa, won't it cause us problems in your conclusive remarks?
First of all, we need to be very appreciative to Ugandan government for always coming very handy, very fast in case a neighbor is having a problem. That is how neighbors should behave. I don't see much problems coming in, apart from any mass solutions and a lot of benefit that we are going to get because of this operation happening now in the DRC. Previously, a month ago, Uganda was becoming unstable in one way or the other. And I think so far now, when you move around, people are resuming their businesses as usual.
Getting back to normal life.
Yeah, everyone seems to be very happy with what is happening, much as they may not express, openly. And I could hear some other people really talking negatively and all that, but when you look at it closely, interact with them lengthily, they will admit that indeed Uganda, a peaceful Uganda is good for all Ugandans. And we can not only have a peaceful Uganda when our neighbors are in problems. So the journey that Uganda has started, I think it's something that we need to appreciate and also encourage other neighboring states to do the same. But I don't see any problems if we continue working as one. Because if we are united at home, definitely our friends, our brothers and sisters who are out there trying to quench certain fire which would come and burn our house, they would also be in peace, They would have this confidence that we have backing from home. Because when it comes to the national development, sometimes we need to put politics aside and work as one and speak one language. And when it comes to the African-related issues, we need also to put aside, I'm a Ugandan, I'm this and that. And that is what we should be driving towards by ensuring that as Africans we come together and try to see that Somalia is having an issue. Uganda is really there at the forefront. Why don't we join? Our friend in Ethiopia, they're having issues.
Let's go in.
Why don't we come in and help?
Sure.
These are two brothers who are fighting. Why don't we sit them down and we talk? That is the kind of mission we should now start pursuing. So for the case of the DRC, so far I think so good. And we need to continue encouraging them to move on, and we need to continue talking with our brothers here also to appreciate what is happening, that anything that affects any Ugandan from any part of this country should concern all of us.
Okay, thank you very much. Ndugu Mtuta, in just maybe 2 minutes before we close or we end Pan-African Friday today, the success of Shujaa to Uganda and of course to the rest of Africa.
Yes, still there will be ramifications, there will be
boomerangs, right?
Exactly. But I think it is going to be a success. We cannot
shy away from that?
From that. And I will be happy associating with that success. But you also remember, this is also going to give an idea of having a standby force for the region. That what Uganda is doing is what the whole East Africa should have done, to have a standby force that can intervene where there are problems. But also that's also going to be replicated in the standby force for the African continent. He was talking about, and President Museveni talked about it, if we had a standby force for Africa, maybe Gaddafi wouldn't have been killed that way. There would have been some regard to that. Now, when you look at that, you also realize that the people who we think we have entrusted with the safety, with the security of this continent may not necessarily be the people we should have trusted in the first place. Because when you are talking about UN, and for me, I believe and I would want to see that day when the UN in Congo will be investigated for the crimes that have been committed. You realize that even when Lumumba was killed, it was part of that internal arrangement within the UN. You remember the resident representative for UN is the one who ordered, who froze the airport, they were flying out. And there was the radio that was switched off. And this was instrumental if Lumumba was to survive. So I think that at where we are now, we need to have, and President Museveni was talking about it, African solutions for the African problems. And that's why the Congolese are happy, because they are seeing fellow Africans coming in to solve their African problems. These are people they know, these are the brothers they know. So not everyone is going to be happy to do that, because the jackals that have been benefiting from the jungles, and because of these conflicts they have been able to get to amass a lot of wealth and exploit a lot, and in areas that are going to be pacified, maybe they are not going to have that opportunity, so they are not going to be happy. But I think if African leaders are to come up and see further than what we are seeing today, then we don't have to be dramatists. We don't have to be actors. We need to take decisions that sometimes are going to be hard, because this can also have ripples back at home. But I think we need to appreciate the effort so far, and I'm sure that what's going to come out of the Operation Shujaa is going to be good for the continent, but also good for humanity, for both people who are living in, the Congolese, and also for Ugandans, but generally the greater good for the African continent.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ndugu James Mututa, a fellow Pan-Africanist here, and of course, a panelist for the Pan-African Friday every Friday. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and of course, for your opinions on why we think the DRC matters very much out the continent of Africa. Asante Ndugu Rugarama, the chairman of the Pan-African Movement Uganda. Thank you so much also for being here, and of course for exhibiting the Pan-Africanism in you. And thank you so much, Ndugu Calvin Ogwang. Calvin Ogwang is a consultant, he's a member of the Uganda People's Congress Party, and also a candidate for IALA 2022-2027. Okay, and there he is. Of course, your vote is not for all of us. Your vote is for the members of parliament. So you need to do very good work there to go and talk to the majority of them. Of course, are NRM. Talk to them and ask them for support. And see that you actually make it there. Go to the East African Legislative Assembly, represent us, and maybe continue propelling the Pan-African dream that we all have. My name is Jagenda Semakola Ziksoka. Just thanking you so much, and of course reminding you that later today, or later this afternoon, we'll also be bringing you the Thanksgiving service, Christmas carols, that will be hosted by His Excellency President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni for that end of year Thanksgiving service. It will be live via on UBC TV. Wishing you all the best, thanking you so much, and of course wishing you a very blessed weekend. For God and my country, we love Uganda, we love Africa, and we love humanity. Good morning.
It's Freaky Friday from Airtel. Buy or gift. Buy or give.
Get freaky too! Dial star 149 star 10 hash to load a Freaky Friday bundle for you to enjoy the best offers on voice and data.
To buy a bundle for friends and family, dial star 149 star 10 star 5 hash. Freaky Friday with Airtel. Buy or gift a bundle today. Dial star 149 star 10 hash to get started. Airtel, the smartphone network.
raising voices.
Like other fathers across Uganda, I'm standing up to say no to violence against children. I commit to give my children a violence-free childhood. As fathers, we can make Uganda safer for our children. I promise to speak out when I see violence.
In this time of COVID, what is your promise to the children of Uganda? Because